Hey guys, bit of a long one this week. We are working on this fortune teller 3D cake. This was part of the cake challenge over in my forum. You know the drill, please stick around to the end of the video to see everybody's entries and vote for your favourite in the comments. There is a lot to get through, so let's make a start. Firstly, we need to make the base. You want 2 drums with roughly 2-inch difference. I think this is a 10-inch drum and a 12-inch drum. You then want to hot glue the smallest drum, leaving the centre glueless underneath the large one. The deeper your base, the more secure your support will be. I'm then just measuring the centre of the drum, and I've got a 12mm dowel. I'm using a wooden drill bit that's a little smaller at 10mm because the UK cake drums are compressed card and the hole always ends up being slightly bigger. I've then chopped my dowel down to size. I just guessed how high it would be and I've cut it to roughly 14 inches. You then want to hot glue down inside the hole and bang your dowel down into it as far as it will go with a hammer and just hold it straight until it sets. As mentioned, the deeper you can get it in the base, the more secure it will be. For even extra security, I like to also hot glue around the join and leave it to set. Here I'm using one of my solid chocolate skulls. I know, I promised possibly last year that these would hit my shop, but I'm always so behind. I'll keep you updated when they eventually do drop because they are quite a good size. I'm using a purple one as I already had it pre-made and it fits within the mood board we were all working off. I'm just taking a nice sharp scalpel and starting to carve out a hole in the base. It's pretty easy to do, but it can get quite messy. Just keep checking the size of your dowel to make sure it isn't too big or loose. I'm also trying to dig in at an angle so that when I place the skull on the stick, it has a slightly tilted head to add a bit of character. You want to keep all your scrapings in a bowl as you're going to melt this down to use as a glue. To make our support food safe, we're using the tea straws, but they're not quite fat enough to cover the whole thing, so we're going to cut them in half and wrap them over each other until the stick is fully covered. I'm also using a little bit of tape to cover the very top before adding more straws. Melt your small shavings of chocolate, drip it down inside the hole of the skull and place the skull firmly down onto your dowel. Just scrape away any melted chocolate that leaks out the bottom. Whilst that sets, we're going to work on the arms. I've got 2 wires here that are roughly 18 gauge, but they're not quite long enough, so we're going to overlap them by 3 or 4 inches and tape them together. Now we have 1 long wire. Place the centre of this against your dowel and start wrapping the wire so it loops and crosses at the front. This will slide up and down, so we need to hold it still. I'm adding a little blob of hot glue to the straw and sliding the arms into position. Just hold it for a couple of seconds for the glue to take hold. From there you can then add more hot glue around the back and the front, covering the entire wire from top to bottom to encase it. After stepping back, I realised I'd placed it too low, but I was able to easily pick off the glue and repeat the steps, but just placing it a little higher. As we still have a little bit of hot glue around the base, I've just got a circle of greaseproof paper with a hole in the middle and a slit. This will wrap around the straw to cover it. You can also just cover it with straight up chocolate or a piece of cake card or foam core. I'm just using a little bit of ganache to stick down my circle and now the full thing is covered. I'm then adding some more ganache on top to stick my cake down with. Usually I tort and fill my cakes with yummy fillings such as jam and buttercream, but here I'm just shoving uncut cakes onto the support as we're not going to be eating this and it's just for the tutorial. The same thing applies here with a hole cut out in the centre and a slit so you're able to stack them. Try alternating where you put the slits. If you stack all the slits on top of each other, the structure of the cake won't be as strong. It's a bit like alternating the edges of bricks in a brick wall, just offset them. I'm stacking up 2 deep 6-inch cakes. This is actually my regular 6-inch cake size, but as mentioned I usually cut these in half, and I'm just using 5-inch cakes for the top. Now you just need to decide where you want the dress to start, and start trimming off the cake in small pieces. I'm just carving it into a gentle dome and taking off the caramelisation. I'm also cutting a small part of the front flat where we're going to add some decoration. Once you have your desired shape, you just want to cut the whole thing in a layer of chocolate ganache. The recipe for this is linked below. You may have noticed I've bent the wires to help visualise the placement of the arms, but you can just keep yours straight and it's much easier to ganache when they're out the way. Once the first layer has set, add a second layer and smooth it with an acetate smoother, as this will bend to the contours of the curves. Dampen the flat front of the dress and add on a piece of black sugar paste. Smooth this out and follow the shape you can see behind the paste with a scalpel. In the centre of this, I'm just marking out an eye shape with the Dresden tool and then cutting it out with a scalpel. Squash a white piece of paste into a flat lemon shape and stick this in the hole. Another colour from the mood board was teal, so I've cut out a circle for the centre and I'm using watered down turquoise gel to paint around the rim. To make the lines easier to paint, first mark in lines almost like the numbers on a clock. This will just help to keep all your lines at the right angles as you go around. Then squash a ball of black paste into the centre and a little white one for a catchlight. Roll a tapered black sausage and stick it above the eye for an eyelid and mark in creases with the Dresden tool. Do the same for the bottom eyelid. I'm now covering the board using the toilet seat method in just white paste. The full tutorial for this is always linked below. I'm then taking my airbrush and starting with pink water-based airbrush colour. This stuff is bright. I then added 2 drops of blue to the pink to make this purple colour. Lastly, I'm putting on regular blue in all the gaps and overlapping some of the other colours to tone them down a little. Whilst that dries, we're going to work on the torso. You are completely free to make this edible if you wish, however long skinny arms and just a small torso is better as decoration. All you need to do is cover your hot glue with chocolate or tape before adding your edible material of choice. As most people want to eat the cake, which is in the dress, I'm happy to pad my decoration out with tinfoil. This is how most armature start, especially in clay modelling, as it's an inexpensive material, lightweight, and it bulks out the mass so you're not using as much expensive material, i.e. sugar paste. I'm then coating the whole thing in ganache, and this is just to add a smooth surface for the sugar paste. You can also smooth it and shape it with your fingers, because no one's going to eat it. By the time you've finished, you'll realise it's not really worth doing Rice Krispies, is it? I'm dirtying up the skull with some black colour mixed with a little bit of white dust. The white dust is important here as we're painting chocolate, and watered down gel colours on their own will just bead up, almost like it's waterproof. You can also use cocoa butter to paint or simply dust it. I'm adding the paint to all the deep areas and then wiping away the excess to leave the paint in the deeper cracks. Usually I would wipe this off with a paper towel, but I've run out, and as I'm not eating it, I'm just going to go in with my fingers. Whilst I have my paintbrush out, I've made some gold paint with Faye's Regency Gold and lemon extract, and again starting with the clock sort of shape, it's easier to get all the other lines on at the right angles. I'm now starting to work on the body by adding white sugar paste and blending any seams together. Just keep adding white paste to bulk out the torso and the skelly boobs, covering the neck and the tops of the shoulders. This is just plain sugar paste with nothing added, as it's much easier to blend because the armature is doing all the work, so there's no need to add Tylo or anything for support. And then covering the whole upper half with black paint and sticking on purple sausages of sugar paste to replicate the spine, breastbone, ribs, shoulder bones, shoulder blades, which are softened triangles. Just pull up a picture of a skeleton and try your best. Then I'm going back in with the black paint to grunge it up to match the skull. I've now cut a piece of white paste which I'm wrapping around to hold the skelly boobs from dropping out of the ribs. You just want to trim to the contours underneath and add lots of creases and lines to make a ruffled top. I'm then using the teal again, and I've cut a semicircle from the top edge to help follow the curve of the front and wrap up around the back. Just trim where it joins and press the seams together, cutting off any excess to tidy it all up. With the gold paint again, I'm just adding a little bit of line detail to the bodice. For ruffles on the dress, I've got a long black strip of paste, which I'm just folding on itself a bit accordion style. Just keep going until it's the length of the front of the dress. I'm then using a Dresden tool to squash down the centre, as I'm only using the short bottom piece. Stick this to the front with water and roll out a long thin string of black paste. Fold it in half, lay the two strings together, push one hand up and one down to create a rope effect. Press the rope on top to finish the front dress detail. Phew, are we keeping up? Next, we are going to cover the whole base of the dress in a navy colour. I'm not going to lie, this colour can be known to rip, so just be gentle with it. I've just wrapped it around, not wanting to mess with it too much, so I'm just grabbing the crease and chopping it off rather than trying to smooth it out. You just want to cover all the parts of the ganache that we're showing. Take another piece of the navy in a square or rectangle and fold two of the pointed ends over on each other, accordion style again, to make little draped pleats. Just tuck one underneath the other to create this ruffle effect. Add this to the bottoms of the dress on either side of the eye, pinching off any bulky parts from the top, and continue to lay the ruffles over the ones below it. Then add a ruffle to each side of the dress and one on the very back. To match the colour of the headdress I'm using, I've got this coral colour, which again has a semicircle cut out and the bottom has a point. I'm wrapping it around the waist, laying the point to the left side of the eye. If you have any creases at the waist, just fold them over as it enhances the ruffled material look. I've then done the exact same with the teal, but as a smaller one over the top. For a belt, I'm using black paste that was cut as a long strip, but with a bump right in the centre. Now raid your sprinkle drawer and see if you have any of these gold confetti discs. They make great little coins to add to the base of one of your overlays. Now for the arms, I'm having one bent, and I've bent the very end upwards to hold a crystal ball. I wanted to use a glittery lint ball, which here in the UK is a chocolate type of truffle encased in a chocolate shell, but we had to settle for a polystyrene ball. You can make this cake as easy or as difficult as you like by maybe playing with isomalt for the crystal or adding more detail and lace to the dress. Just use this shape as a base and go crazy. You've just seen me easily merge two marbled colours together, and I'm now pushing this around the polystyrene ball, rolling it between my hands to get rid of the creases. Push this down onto the wire. You don't want anything too heavy. For the sleeves, I've rolled almost like a white carrot shape, and I've cut a slit down the centre so the wire will sit in it. Once the sausage is on, pinch the seam together to close it. I'm then adding elbow creases and pleats to the material. I've then got another tapered sausage which I've slightly flattened and wrapped over the shoulder to merge the top of the sleeve with the bones, in a way of a puffy shoulder pad. I did the other arm in the same way, except this one is out straight with no bends, so it's much easier. Using the purple, cut some pointy sausages and lay them from the sleeve up around the ball as little skeletal fingers. And don't forget to press in the joins. I flattened a white cone and I'm twisting it between my fingers for a ragged piece of material that's going to dangle from the sleeves. I'm making the other hand all in one, and I've cut out my little triangle to make the thumb. I'm just going to roll this between my fingers but still keeping the end pointy, before laying the hand down and cutting 3 slits to make 4 fingers. Gently separate these and do the same, keeping the ends pointy. Your middle finger is the longest, so just pinch off any that are too long and continue rolling until you have this creepy hand. Again, don't forget to mark in the joins and then roll in a wrist just below the sugar paste thumb. Chop this wrist down and slide it onto the remaining piece of wire. Position your fingers how you want. I pushed mine together and bent them up slightly, which I'm pretty sure is impossible for a skeleton, but it makes it look a bit more elegant. In the navy again, I've cut a straight edge which I'm laying over the top of the skull, and then pushing the remainder of the ragged paste around the back, leaving the creases as it will most likely crack, and just push them into a gathered lump. In the same colour, I'm just twisting a strip of paste to look like material, and I'm laying it over one shoulder and joining it to the gathers on the back. Blend this with a Dresden tool and then stick on a few sequins as a little headscarf brooch. I was kindly gifted this beautiful flower crown by Louise Latham Flowers over on Instagram. If you remember, I used her stuff in a previous tutorial and this was sent through at the same time, and I'm only just getting round to using it. It fits her little head perfectly. It's up to you how far you go with detail, but here I have this thin gauge wire, possibly a 22, which I'm just wrapping around a cylindrical shape and twisting to make a hoop. I then cut it down and bent the top before making a little hole in the skull with a cocktail stick. Place the bent wire into this hole for some hoop earrings. You want paper covered wire as this takes paint really well. I then added some thin strings of paste at the elbow joins which I'm just painting gold, but I'm also adding some little dots to the belt. Because I couldn't stop there, I'm now adding little starburst shapes to the coral wrap. I'm dirtying up the whole thing with watered down black gel. I felt the board was a little bit too bright, so I'm defining the edge with black and also airbrushing inside the ruffles, underneath the material and around the belt. And here she is. I know there was a lot to get through and it was a long tutorial, but I want to keep you just a little bit longer as the brigade have created some really awesome pieces using the exact same mood board that I did. I've given each one a letter and you can just leave your vote in the comments below. Like I said, you can make this cake as difficult, easy or detail heavy as you like, and there are a ton of design possibilities. I would love it if you liked it just enough to share it, and if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button as I am now just over halfway to reaching that silver play button. Not something I thought I'd ever say. Here is our mood board we were working from. The theme was mystical and the girls created anything from cakes to drawings to sugar pieces. I can't wait to hear what your favourites are, and I'll see you again next week. Bye guys.